Good morning, everybody, and happy Saturday. Thank you so much for joining us, and it's so wonderful to start back where we started with Beth Davidson. I'm so happy to have her here, and we're looking forward to having a conversation about the federal impact on local governments. But as always, I just wanted to say hi, and I wanted to introduce the newest member of our family, Ruthie, who joined us this week, and it's very nice to meet all of you. My name is Kevin McAvey, if you haven't tuned in before. I'm a husband, father of three, Bedford resident, now a dog owner, Democrat, state health policy expert, good government advocate, and board member across the country. And we are gathered here today, as always, to discuss to ensure that everyone across the district has the information they need to productively engage in our political process. Really understand the issues impacting our families, our households, our businesses, to help us identify the best person to represent our interests in 2026. Through this forum and these live streams, we're discussing the issues, talking about the facts, fostering community, and introducing the candidates. We've gone through a full series of introductory interviews with each of the candidates, and this will be our third in our second policy series in August 2025, talking with Beth Davidson about a policy topic of her choosing. We have a number of other candidates to talk to in the coming weeks, so I hope you'll continue to stay tuned and you can catch all of the recordings on YouTube. My advice for everyone is to get involved. August is a great time to really get to know the candidates. This fall is a great time to start to get behind the candidates. If you like what you hear on this interview or any of our other interviews, I'd encourage you just to make a token donation to one of the candidates, one or more of the candidates. 2026 is a great amount, and I know that many of the candidates have greatly appreciated your donations in that amount so far. But also encourage everyone to know your stuff. Facts are at a premium nowadays, but they are incredibly powerful. Regardless of the issue, do your own research, think critically about the issues, and push back. And finally, stay positive. All of the candidates I've had the pleasure of meeting will better represent, in my belief, our values come next November than our current representative. And I think this is never more apparent than seen through the issues that come up each week. One issue that came up this week in the state of Texas, there is a Republican proposal to change the already heavily gerrymandered state to add up to 3 to 5 new Republican seats in the district. New York has an independent commission for redistricting, allowing for a greater balance. 19 Democrat seats right now, 7 Republican of our 26 seats. This week, Representative Lawler actually came out and said something I agree with. And while I find it's incredibly rich that someone who's actually called out people who have been disagreeing with him as paid protesters while having a staff member actually serve as an instigator and inciter of some of those at his town halls and rallies, I agree with him that we really need to think as a nation about how we are being represented in Congress. It is not right that only 30 to 35 seats change over each year. It is not right that incumbents can serve for 30, 40 years without real competition. Many of us actually in this country feel without representation. And I think something that's really special in our district is choice. And through our Democratic primary right now, we have 7 nominees for you to get to know and learn from. Ultimately, to get to choose one, and the choice next November between whoever that candidate is and Representative Lawler could not be more stark. I was asked last night if I would actually interview Representative Lawler, and I responded, I've asked him. I've asked him a couple of times if he would like to come on and actually talk about the issues in a respectful way. He's declined, but the invitation still remains. If he would like to come on and actually talk about his votes on issues and their impact on this district, I'd be more than happy to have a fair, respectful conversation with him, because that's what's at stake here. And with that, and I apologize for moving a little quickly, because I'm so excited to get to our guest today, Beth Davidson. Beth is one of the first candidates to, if not the first candidate, to declare a run against Representative Mike Lawler in 2025. She's a Rockland County legislator where she chairs the Environment Committee and Task Force on Water Resources Management and serves as vice chair of the Housing and Economic Development Committee. She was previously a 2-term Nyack School Board member and has been an active community leader, serving on the boards of her synagogue, Leadership Rockland, the Soar Mentorship Program, and the Children's Shakespeare Theater. She lives in Nyack with her husband and her 2 children, and I am so thrilled to have back, once again, Beth Davidson. Hey, Beth. Oh, you're mute. Good morning. I unmuted you.
Okay.
How are you?
I'm great.
Good. So when thank you. She's been graceful in her entrance and sleeping well. When we first had the opportunity to have a conversation a couple of months ago, you were like, your campaign, this was back in April. I remember being in this room and it being very cold. But it's been a while. How's the campaign been going?
It's going great. We're feeling really great energy and momentum on the ground. Got more than 150 endorsements from both sides of the river and both sides of the aisle. I've raised more than $850,000 in 4.5 months, with the average contribution under $75. Probably held at least 60 meet and greets at this point across the district, 3 candidate forums, and the reaction's been really positive and really excited about how things are going. And momentum into the fall.
Yeah, and the just want to highlight, like, I think you have the total, like the highest number of donations so far among the candidates. Is that right?
Yes, I'm really proud of the grassroots support for this campaign. It's really been humbling.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that, like if not most of that funding, actually comes from in-district residents.
That's right.
Yeah,
I'm really excited.
Yeah, and that's wonderful to see. And I know that you're 4 different events every single day. You are really everywhere in the district, and it's really showing.
Luckily, I'm an extrovert, so I got a lot of energy from people.
God bless the extroverts among us.
Exactly. So no, it's been really important, I think, to be out listening. You've heard me say, and I think you agree, that Democrats didn't do enough listening in 2024 to what voters were really waking up and falling asleep caring about, which is that it's too expensive to live here in the Hudson Valley. So it's been really important, I think, to be around the district, listening to all different communities. Gosh, this is such a diverse district of wonderfully vibrant and very different communities. And so these kitchen table issues impact communities in different ways. And it's been really great and helpful to me to be hearing that.
What have you been hearing?
That life here is just too expensive, that the American dream, when we talk about owning a home, sending our kids to a good school, just seems further and further out of reach. And Donald Trump and Mike Lawler are certainly not helping that. And the BBB, which is, I call the bad, brutal bill, is just going to make all of that more difficult, not only for families, but for county legislators like me.
Yeah. And the actions that are happening at the federal level, from actions being taken by President Trump in his proposed budget, his executive orders, all the way to the actions being taken and blessed by President Trump and Representative Lawler in Congress, are going to have real impacts both now and through the years to come on our local communities, right?
That's right. Yeah. If we just zero in, because I could, talk about so many issues that are going to be impacted on the county level, from housing to veteran services to healthcare to, in Dutchess County, I know they're really worried about their mobile health units. In Putnam County, it's a lot about, water resources management, which, as you know, I work a lot on and know a lot about. But I'm going to focus on hunger assistance, because that's something I've been, needing to address since I served on the school board. When COVID first hit, that was the first thing that went to my mind, is how we feed kids who, we knew that more than 40% of our students relied on school meals to eat. And so that was one of the first things we tackled during COVID. I went right down to our local community center, and we eventually set up a food pantry from scratch. Started with just getting kids their daily meals through our food service providers, but then realized that families needed assistance on the weekends too. So we built a food pantry. And, that's the real face of hunger. You were talking up front about the statistics, and I can recite a lot of statistics too, but it's seeing the face of the kid in the family who's standing out, at a 6-foot distance from the person in front of them for an hour waiting for their meals, that really hits home how important food security is. And so, that started hitting here in Rockland and across New York State before the bad, brutal bill.
Yeah.
Because, Trump's administration cut funding to TFAP, the Emergency Food Assistance Program, which gives assistance to farms to produce food for local food banks. And so what that meant was that the Regional Food Bank of Northeastern New York had to pay more to get food, and that cut food deliveries in half for our local food pantry, people to people. And so, what does that mean? They have to go back to food drives, tariffs, higher prices at the food, at the grocery store. So food drives already inefficient. And people were really moving away from that as a way to garner food for food pantries. But, now it's even more difficult with food prices being higher. And so fast forward that now that we have the bad, brutal bill, we know that's going to, risk food assistance for 300,000 New Yorkers, more than 50,000 in Rockland County, depend on SNAP benefits. So, that's just going to mean more people going to the food pantry. And there we are, and the cycle continues.
Yeah.
And specifically how that impacts counties is that previously, under current law, the federal government picks up 50% of the, cost sharing of administrative costs and error. That's going to go back down to 25%, which means that counties are going to have to pick up that slack. That's an extra $30 million in Rockland County alone.
Well, counties are flush with funds, right?
Not so much. And so I shared with you, and I don't know if you'll want to look to it. But the New York State Association of Counties has recommended that, to prepare for cuts, and we're just talking about food assistance, but there's Medicaid, there's other costs. We're gonna have to scale back services, raise local property taxes. And gosh, here in Rockland, we have worked so hard to bring our budgets under control. And, we just, and raise our bond rating, which, we just announced last week had risen again. So
congratulations.
We're really proud of that work. And so that's not something we want to do, or, delay capital improvements. It's not going to be good.
No, not at all. And I think this goes to this bigger theme of like passing the buck. And what we saw in like the one big beautiful bill, which I'm going to keep going for, because I do think, I don't know if you remember like the President Bush like mission accomplished banner, or I mean, I get echoes of that here, because there is nothing beautiful about this bill, and it's actually going to wind up hurting people. But the trick of it, and kind of the sick part about it, when we talk about politics, is a lot of the impacts, a number of the impacts, some of which are going to happen sooner or later, but a number of them are going to happen after the next election. But to your point, from the National Association of Counties, they warned that as counties lose federal support up to $1 trillion over 10 years, it's the big passing the buck bill. The federal government's not going to pay for these services, but they're going to expect states, and then states are going to expect counties to pick up the slack. I don't know about you. I'm still paying just as much as I ever have to the federal government, but yet down the road, we're all going to be likely paying more if we want to maintain the same standard of living, make sure that the most vulnerable among us actually have access to services. And the choices then downstream for state and local policymakers are going to be pretty stark and dire.
That's right. And I'm sorry, I want to correct it. It's 20 million for Rockland, 30 million for Westchester.
Got it.
Just SNAP alone.
I mean, that's crazy. And so like that have you already started to see some of these kind of big hard decisions come before you?
Not yet, because what we're still approving our pass-through funds from last year, but we're thinking about it for sure, and what those cuts are going to mean down the line. And again, when we look at what's happening with our actual constituents in real time, we can look at healthcare and what's happening with our local hospitals. This is not something that's happening somewhere else. Nyack Montefiore is, a mile from my house.
Yep.
And I know people who work, the doctors who work there. I know other people who work there, and it's where, my family has gone for care many times.
Yeah, but Beth, they're just using talking points. They're not actually representing their business interests, right?
Talking points, right?
Yeah.
No. I trust doctors to
Yes.
make the right decisions for their and hospital administrators to make the right decisions to take care of us.
Yeah, and of course we're talking about this week. Representative Lawler and Scarborough got into a back and forth on MSNBC, where Mr. Lawler was speaking, like, was calling out the fact, or in his belief, that everyone was parroting talking points when talking about their interests as hospitals, as healthcare facilities, as physicians, when actually they're just speaking from practical experience. When you cut coverage, people do not have access to healthcare and wind up having to go to the emergency room for care that could have otherwise been provided in lower cost settings, and that care is then uncompensated or compensated through far less efficient means. But yet he knows best. He is the expert, and I really appreciated your clap back yesterday, which I'm sure was noticed, as Mr. Lawler does seem to be noticing a lot of what you put out online as he's looking down the road.
Absolutely. And Montefiore Nyack is a nonprofit hospital that serves our community and serves it really with heart and integrity. I've put my money where my mouth is and done fundraisers. Can participate in fundraisers for the hospital. It's such an important part of our community. I've been on the picket line with nurses also, who were already worried about cuts, and were talking to me on the line about how difficult it is to find housing.
Yeah.
How expensive it is to live here in the Hudson Valley and work as a healthcare worker. And they're so committed to their jobs and just really worried about the cuts coming down the line.
So we've talked about the one big beautiful bill. Like, are there other things that Representative Lawler is doing that lets New Yorkers down? I mean, it seems time and time again, and this is something I don't remember happening 2 decades ago. Our representatives keep voting against New York's interests, as opposed to thinking about, like, how I can actually help the people in my district.
Well, one thing that continually keeps coming up is reproductive rights. That's another issue that's huge to me. And, the fact that, Mike Lawler said, "Oh, I'll never vote for a national ban." It's settled law here in New York. And we do have additional protections here in New York State that were passed after we knew Roe was going to fall. But when Mike Lawler was in the state assembly, he voted against the majority of those measures. And so we have to really look at the entirety of the record when you talk about his support or lack of support for reproductive freedom. I'd also go to gun safety. The big, beautiful bill also handed out a big tax giveaway to the gun industry in the form of eliminating the tax on silencers. And we just saw a horrible shooting in Midtown Manhattan, across the street from where my husband used to work. So again, this is not happening somewhere else. This is happening very close to us, and it's well past time for common sense national gun reforms, including an assault weapons ban. And that's something that he has just not addressed, and that I've addressed. Ran on a gun safety, passing a common sense gun safety bill that I passed within the first 8 months of taking office. It was bipartisan, unanimous vote signed by our Republican county executive. So proof that if you really roll up your sleeves and work across the aisle, you can get things done. I really believe that's what government can and should do for people, make their lives better. That's why I'm running for Congress.
Yeah. And that's what you've been doing in the Rockland County legislature, right?
That's right. And that's why you see that I have support from both sides of the aisle. I won my county legislative seat with 57% of the vote, which means the Republicans and independents already vote for me. So, he's coming out with pretty much all of the Democratic candidates in this race saying we're radical leftists. It's not going to stick with me. People know that I'm the first to reach across the aisle to work with folks. There's a lot of Republican elected officials in Rockland County that I get along tremendously with. I'm here to work with everybody. That's what voters sent me here to do. And I would do the same in Washington.
Yeah. So working in a bipartisan matter, how do you feel people on the legislature are bracing for these kind of downstream impacts, lack of federal leadership, or federal leadership really kind of pointing us in the wrong direction? How are people preparing for what's ahead?
I have every faith And we have, I'll remind you, a Democratic supermajority that I helped deliver in 2023, boosting voter turnout by 20% over the previous 2021 off-year election. So local elections matter. Make sure, I know we're talking about 2026 here, but
25 November this year, there are elections
absolutely.
that very much matter.
Absolutely. And I'm so excited to have been out knocking doors with our summer volunteer team for candidates in Putnam and Westchester and soon to be Rockland, because these are very important races. But we're a body that is really unified in serving our constituents. So I have every faith that we'll be able to really lock arms and make sure that we're protecting our constituents and serving them the best way we can without cutting services or raising costs on our taxpayers.
Yeah. So next November, you're elected. How would you better serve us than Mr. Lawler on these issues that are impacting our local governments and really all of our communities?
Well, I'd begin by, restoring all the cuts that we're seeing. Repeal and replace I think has a nice ring to it in terms of this really cruel and disastrous budget. We need to take care of people, and the DOGE cuts have been horrific, but if we're being honest, some institutions didn't always work that well for people in the first place. So we can build something better, I think, that serves our public schools better, that serves our families better, improvements to the healthcare system. As a two-time cancer survivor, that's something I understand very personally, the need to bring down the cost of prescription drugs, the need to, I love the idea of ending gerrymandering. Guess what? It could have happened in 2021 when the House passed the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act without a single Republican vote. And then obviously it stalled out in the Senate. So this is something that could have already been done.
Like immigration. Just
like immigration, which yes, could have passed, did pass the Senate, killed in the House by Donald Trump and Mike Johnson and Mike Lawler.
Yeah. And so where do you go from here? I know that this is just the beginning of a journey for you, and you've already picked up a fair amount of momentum. What does the fall look like? What does your path to nomination look like?
Well, more of the same, just getting out and listening to people, meeting as many folks as we can. There's going to be at least one, if not two more candidate forums where we can really talk directly to voters and to Democratic leaders about our plans for victory and our plans once we're elected. And I've always been an extremely hard working campaigner. I always run like I'm 10 points behind. That's, I think, how I came out 7 points ahead. But that's the most important part of the job, is really being out and listening to people. And that's what I'll be continuing to do. So
I'm assuming you're not considering yourself a front runner right now.
Like I said, run like I'm 10 points behind. That's the way to win. I mean, the voters will decide at the end of the day.
Absolutely. So if people are thinking about and just wanting to kind of boil it down to characteristics or attributes that really make you stand out, why should they kind of be interested in supporting you as a candidate?
Sure. Well, I'm the only candidate in this race with a proven track record of beating Republicans in tough districts, and not just my own. While I did win my own seat, we also held a redrawn Clarkstown council seat in 2023 and flipped one in 2024. And that's getting out and knocking doors. I am a team player. I've been a member of my Clarkstown Democratic Committee for almost a decade. And really, I believe in this being a team and us all working together, which is why you're seeing me out there knocking for candidates this year as well. So I'm the only candidate with that record, as well as being able to deliver results in divided government, from, as I said, passing my own common sense gun safety bill to cutting taxes, preserving hundreds of acres of open space, boosting funding for nonprofits when, as we're seeing, that's going to be really important to supporting folks in our community in need. And that's what I'll continue to do as your Congresswoman.
Yeah. So if people want to get involved and get in touch, how do they do that?
You can go to my website, BethDavidsonForCongress.com, and reach out to us that way. I encourage everyone to follow me on social media. Try to be pretty active there too, and really just open to all questions and feedback. We are only going to flip this seat and take back the House of Representatives if we work together. And I'm really excited to do that with everyone here watching, and with anyone else who wants to join our campaign to really put Congress back to work for the people.
Well, Beth, I thank you so much for taking time on your Saturday morning to talk again. And I look forward to following your campaign through the fall and perhaps talking again soon.
It's always great to talk with you, Kevin. Thank you.
Good to see you, Beth. So everyone, it's so wonderful. Thank you again for joining. I do want to remind you, this is the third of our series. On Thursday, we welcome back Mike Sachs, former political journalist, lawyer, Supreme Court expert, to talk about the rule of law and its incredible importance right now and why we need to stand up for it. We'll have Effie Phillips Staley, John Sullivan, Jeremy Saland, if he's going to join the race. I don't know what he's doing, but he'll tell us. Jessica Ryman will close out the series at the beginning of September. It continues to be a real pleasure to get to represent you in these conversations with each of our candidates. And again, this is our second series focused on policy issues chosen by the candidates, getting a little bit deeper into the weeds and talk about their paths to the nomination, making sure that you have the information you need in order to actually select the nominee you want to get behind. Ultimately, we're going to get behind our nominee and win next November. And it continues to be my great pleasure to get to talk to the candidates and represent you all. Keep the questions coming. I look forward to seeing you all soon. Talk soon.